My whole life, everything that I thought about myself wasn't even my own thoughts about myself. It was the projected thoughts from my parents about me and other family members who had said, "You are this, you are this, you are this, you are this." And so I took those labels on. And in those labels, what was actually me wasn't allowed any space to be at all.
Welcome to Fatherhood Voices, breaking the toxic cycle. Dive in as real dads bear all, the mess ups, make ups, and every heartfelt moment in between. It's raw, it's real, and it might just change the way you see family.
Welcome to another episode of Fatherhood Voices. I'm excited today because I have a very special guest, and that's Harsha Sosa. And we crossed paths in the last 2+ years, and we're in the same coaching program with her husband. And just such a beautiful soul. And as I've watched her maneuver through and holding space, doing breath work, and then also just recently when I sat in a mushroom ceremony, she was one of the facilitators, and just the words of wisdom and encouragement that she gave me before I went and sat in ceremony. Just with I was struggling with some guilt, with the passing, a drowning that happened, and just words of comfort, almost like an old soul of wisdom, like a mother, and
Mhm.
just setting the path for me as I went into the journey. Definitely gave me different perspectives. So I'm excited today to hear your journey, Harsha, and just where you started, where you're evolving to, and then all the new exciting things that you're doing. Because I'm not going to give it away yet, but her and her husband and children are making a very drastic move, and they're following their dreams, they're following their passions, and they shift from one industry into something that's calling them, their heart, their purpose. Harsha, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edward. I'm very appreciative, humbled, and yeah, just feeling very blessed to be in this opportunity to share in this space with you. So thank you. Thank you so much. And I love what you're doing with this podcast, with your mission and who you're being and what you're moving through and all everything. It's just, I really want to honor you in this moment for creating these spaces for people to continue healing in and stepping into our greatness together.
No, thank you so much for that.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
who is Harsha? Where did Harsha come from? And oh, we know where
Yeah.
you came from.
Yeah, right? Okay, my story. We can start like right at the start. The I was born in India at about 2.5 years old. About 2 years old, my family moved from India to Dubai. And so we were there from, well, I was at the age of 2 till about 9. And when I was 9, my family moved, my family meaning my dad, my mom, my brother, and I moved from Dubai to Vancouver. And from Vancouver, we then moved 3 years later to a little suburb in the vicinity, and that's where we've been since then. So within that, oh, there's so much to share. But the pivotal key aspects of my life that's made me who I am is that I was given from an early age not only this gift of having the opportunity to see the world. Yes, we moved to these places, but even within those moves, we traveled a lot. That was a value that my parents held very close to their hearts. They wanted us to be able to explore and see different perspectives and see different ways around the world. And yes, we also had our own cultural conditionings and deeply rooted limitations that, as a collective and humanity, we all are moving through right now. So that also created like a contrast for me to move through in my life where, yes, I was having these amazing experiences of being able to see. And, as humans, we have our own consciousness, and through my consciousness and my parents' guidance, I was shown all these new ways of being. And that created for me this belief that there really is no one way. No one person has it all figured out. And everyone's kind of on the same sort of path. And as we moved, my childhood years in Dubai were really, I mean, normal childhood. There wasn't really anything like big, like no big T traumas or anything, but there was a lot of little T trauma in the sense of the limitations, and my parents really wanted me. Okay, so another thing, kind of going back to my earlier on, right from the start, I was like this golden child in the eyes of my family, like super intuitive, empathetic, very intelligent. And so I was kind of pedestaled right from the get-go and put to this like you're going to be destined for greatness. And that was amazing to have that as like a core belief for me. But also in my culture, there's really limitation to greatness. So with my attributes, basically it was like you're meant to be a doctor, and I took that on for myself too. Like, yes, I'm going to be a doctor cuz I want to like save the world. I want to be the hero for everybody. Like that was my core story for a long time. But really deep down through like now the recent healing that I've done, that the core of that is just I just really wanted to be of value and make an impact, and be create a beautiful life for myself and see a beautiful life around me. That was really the core of it all. But I really channeled that for most of my life into being a doctor. So I went into a lot of sciences and studying the human body and really doing all of this. But it was coming from a place of I have to do this to be that level of greatness that my parents want me to be in. But I didn't realize it was actually really limiting me in who I really was meant to be. So I was working through this in my life and in my adolescence with the dynamic that my parents had. It was really beautiful because my dad was a space for me where he wasn't always present. He was very occupied with his work. Um, and when he was home and when he was present with me, I really felt emotionally very safe in his presence. Like when I did have my dad's presence, it was like nothing could go wrong. I was in heaven, all was good. But it wasn't there for me all the time. And then also my dad, he's a human, so he had his quirks in life that had me kind of question like things, right? Like we all do with our parents because we're all humans and we all have our contrasts. We do this.
Now, let me
And
ask
then
you.
with my pardon me?
Oh no, let me ask a question
Yeah,
over
go for it.
because you said that your parents put you on a pedestal,
Yes.
and you were gifted that, where they made you up to be like, like this superior just person of what, the sky's the limit.
Mm,
Is that something that you think all parents should do? Should they make their kids feel like that? And is that a positive or a negative? Because I know you can start diving.
mm,
So I'm
mhm,
just curious to find out, should we as parents, as our kids are growing up, should we do our best to instill that in them?
mm. That's a great question. I'd say yes, and that's gonna happen naturally when we can see the greatness that exists in ourselves as well. Like, that's a non-negotiable, like, standard of life. Like, we're all destined for greatness, right? And, like, I feel like we should just have that belief all installed within ourselves. Like, I'm meant to be great, you're meant to be great, our kids are meant to be great, we're all friggin' great. And the other side of that, like, where we need to have this discernment is to not allow our idea of greatness and our idea of success to be what we impose onto our children with that. So it's like, yes, you're gonna be great, whatever you do is great, but I'm gonna be here to guide you in you discovering what that is for you, right? Like, that's where I would say there is like a yes and, but with discernment on what does it mean to be great, and to not put our meaning of greatness into our child's meaning of greatness, and instead allow them to discover that for themselves.
And so the word, when you're speaking, projection comes up.
Yes.
And I talk a lot about how, as parents, sometimes we project our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations on our children. And sometimes it's a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah.
So the projection was, okay, you're going to be great. You're superior. You're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Is there a balance that sometimes parents can overproject and put too much pressure on the child as they're navigating through their early years of childhood? Because now it's like, okay, now you have to get all straight A's. Now you have to be this prim proper person, because this is what I'm destined to be.
Yeah.
Where's the fine line?
Yeah, it does happen. Actually, that's what happened to me, and that is part of the healing that I was going through. Is in discovering that what that was a lot of projection. It was a lot of me needing to be that in order for, uh, my parents to feel. And so yes, it can happen. I think how we can support ourselves and our children to be mindful of that and to not overdo that and to not pressure them and in a way like counteract their greatness, is having a sense of connection to ourselves in a way that we can attune to it. Like our relationship to our children is the most intense mirror to the relationship that we have with ourselves. And in every interaction that we have with them, if we can have a sense of attunement and this core belief that we can install within our deepest parts of us that says like greatness is it. Like, that's just how it's gonna be. There is no lack. It's all abundant. It's all here for all of us, right? Like, we have to not exclude ourselves as parents from that equation as well. What can sometimes not sometimes, what can often happen for parents is when the child comes into their life, it's like we forget ourselves and the child becomes everything. And to the fault that then, of course, that doesn't feel right to us in our core. So, in a shadow kind of distorted way, we do end up making it about us and not realizing it that it is about us. It's just that we've taken ourselves out of the picture so much that we don't even realize how much we're showing up and what kind of impact we're making on our children. So I would say having self-awareness and doing work to bring our awareness back to ourselves, our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs will naturally allow our children to go through that process because we're actually like not we're well balanced in the sense of our awareness isn't overly on them or overly on us. It's on in that we can be with it all and then they have space to do what they need to do and come to us when they need the help. And then we can also attune to maybe they need help right now and I should step in here or you know what? I'm going to just step back and they know I'm here for them, but they're doing this on their own. So I hope that answers your
It,
question.
no, it does. And then it brought up another question for me is,
Mhm.
what about those children that weren't made to feel great and weren't made to feel special? And now they go through life and navigate, and now they become parents and they're not able to reciprocate that piece. They're only able to reciprocate the trauma that they experience. How do what do you say to a mother or father that didn't get that type of love, that type of support, that type of encouragement? What do you
Mm.
say to them to start to make a shift? And I know that's a loaded question because
Mhm.
there's a lot, but
Mhm.
what is a best practice that they can take away to maybe just start? Maybe they've messed things up for so long, but they
Right.
watch this episode, they go like, "Oh my gosh, I never my parents didn't make me feel like that, and I'm not making my children feel like that. But how do I start now?"
Mm. Great question. And I love this conversation. This is right now what I'm most passionate about in life and where I'm headed is like exactly this conversation. So thank you. This is perfect. And to answer that, I'm getting kind of two ways. There's one I could be speaking to those who have already become parents. Like they already are and they have children and they're realizing these things about themselves and their lives. So oh, right. I have some things like I don't have this belief in me that all is great. My parents didn't raise me this way. In fact, it was the opposite. But then there may be also people who know they're going to be parents and they know that they have this about them, right? Like as humans, we carry this from whether we're parents or not, that belief we know, like we kind of feel like there's a missing piece in our lives. Like things don't feel abundant, things don't feel whole. And so even before we become parents, I would say to attune to that and begin the healing process. Right now, why I'm so passionate about talking about parenthood, motherhood, fatherhood is even the moment of conception can be done so intentionally that when we figure out, not figure out, but when we come home to ourselves and really like understanding what's going on in our own experience fully, then a lot of these questions answer themselves. Like they don't become an issue anymore. And there's this awareness of whatever damage has already been done, it can be undone. Right? Like I know we're going to move at some point into the plant medicine conversation, but this is something I've experienced especially in a heightened way in plant medicine where literally like every breath, every moment can completely shift where everything is heading, and life isn't keeping score in the way that we in our minds are keeping score of
Mm.
things. And so when we make that decision of like, hey, this no more, we are abundant, we are great. In the past, we may not have felt that, but we really are now ready. And we create that new belief. Life hasn't been keeping score. Like we are, our minds are the only things that have to start letting go of the past at that point because it's already done. Like it's already been healed. Now we're just moving through life, and life is helping us continue that healing and also offering us glimpses of where the healing that we're asking for is needed. And so when that comes in, instead of making it like, "Oh, no, this is the worst thing ever," and, like, it's like, "Oh, no, this is what I asked for. I asked for healing in this place, and life is showing me, like, look, like, something going on here." So, then we can bring healing into that. Does I hope that answers the question, but it kinda goes to, like, whether you are a parent already or not, it's never too late to undo whatever damage has been done, and there's always that's growth. That's growth.
You know, I love that. I'm gonna borrow that phrase of wisdom, "Life isn't keeping score." That's an Instagram post right there, okay? So,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
it's beautiful. Life isn't keeping score, and it's
Mhm.
us that we're keeping score.
Yes.
You know, I was in a deep conversation yesterday with a shaman as I, get ready to head back to a reunion in a couple of weeks, and,
Mm.
a comment that came up was, "In order to heal, you have to not be healed."
Huh.
It just,
Ooh.
like, it just exploded. In order to heal, you have to not be healed. And, as you're talking,
Mm.
that came up for me, that showed up, and, because so many of us, grew up in not a loving, situation where maybe one parent was absent, one was loving, one wasn't, or maybe two parents were absent,
Mhm.
and trying to find that self-love, trying to find that happiness, trying to believe as a child that you're great when you see everybody around you having the love of a mother and a father or family, and then maybe you have trauma in your life. Maybe there's chaos. Maybe there's gangs and drugs and poverty, just a variety of
Right,
different things.
right.
So, and I know you said that, you know, as a parent, we want to make our children feel great. We want to but can you go more into specific? What
Mhm.
are some actual things that a parent can do, and not even a parent, but what can I as a child, and I stumble on this because believe it or not, we have a big following of kids that are watching this because their parents are messed up. So they reach out to us, believe it or not, for
Love
advice.
it.
Um, what would you tell them, not only parents, but them to make themselves feel great amidst all the chaos that's going on? What are some things? And I know the first one that comes to my mind is affirmations, you know,
Yeah.
affirmations, but just because you grew up in a household where, they put you on that pedestal, so what are some actionable items that people can take?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Beautiful question. And to answer it, I want to share like a visual analogy that I hope will support not only in the answer, but kind of understanding where I'm coming from in this. What I'm seeing is, and I also want to relate and say, like, although that was a core belief I wanted to highlight in my life, growing up, like, I had my fair share of like the stuff, like the life challenge and all of it. So I can relate to a lot of the experiences that you're sharing, even though I didn't have them that intensely myself. My empathetic nature allowed me to, even if I watch someone on TV, like having that type of an upbringing, it's like I could be that. And yeah, anyways, I saw a lot in my world travels that really made me be like, whoa, this is an experience people are having in this world. So, um, just to form that like connection of I do relate, even though this is a core belief that I had from a young age. So when it comes to like healing, healing only happens if you're not healed. But there's such a spectrum to that where there's a wound can be like a cut, like a paper cut on your arm, right? Now, if we have within our core big wounds, like emotional wounds, right? We face traumas in our life. And in essence, it's like this big gaping wound at our core. Like it's just raw. Like it hurts. We don't know it, but our body's done a really good job of hiding that pain from us because we couldn't live knowing that we are in that much pain, which is why a lot of people we numb out and we don't even know that it's there. So if you have that going on inside of you because of your challenging upbringing and life experiences that you've had, and so now your wound is really deep. It's not a paper cut on your skin. It's like you have some real like a stab inside of your heart, let's say, is like the actual wound that you have going on. Then because like I said, the body's not gonna always it needs to protect itself. We have a whole world that we need to be able to figure ourselves out in and continue moving through. So it's not feasible in our reality right now to just be like, oh wow, I have this huge wound in me and I need to do whatever I can to heal this. What kind of tends to happen is like, who did this? Where did this come from? Like, I need to figure out who did this. But then there's not really like healing in that. You're kind of just really even more looking at it and then feeling the pain of it. I think that's a good first step to being able to see that you have a wound inside of you, but then letting go of like, now the wound is here. Now I need to heal it. So I'm still speaking to the analogy. I'll get into the details in a minute. So when you can realize like, oh yeah, actually I'm way more deeply wounded than I may have realized. And when we realize that, what actually can happen in the mind is what I just shared. We want to like put it on someone. Like, why is this here? I need this gone so that I can feel better. But what you really need to be doing in that is like really look at that and treat it like you would treat a wound like that. Like, whoa, I need to like patch this up. And patching it up could be actually just literally placing your hands on your heart to say, whoa, like there's hurt here. And like you can imagine that your hands are literally like holding medicine and place it on so you can feel like as if you never received a hug in your life and now you're receiving a hug, you give yourself that. Like I'm giving that love that I never got and that healing that I never got. And I'm letting go of even where this came from in the first place because what's more important to me right now is healing this. Healing this means I don't care about where it came from right now. Even if I understand it, I let go of that and it's here for me to heal. And then that's like first step. I'd say like bringing hands to body is the first step to healing because we need touch. Like our parents needed love to a more degree, and the greatest way a child receives touch in their earliest years is by being held. And so that can be level 1 somatic healing for yourself to go, I'm here, I'm good. Next, from there you can use affirmation, well, the breath. Before the affirmations come in, we then breathe, right, to really feel like what's going on, let things move. And then you can use affirmations, which is also sound. It doesn't have to be words. You can just let sounds out because sometimes in order to receive healing, we first need to release the pain that's in the way. And we don't have language to the pain sometimes, oftentimes, because it's like overwhelming. It's not a language thing. It's just like, ah, ouch, or growling, or, whatever that energy feels like it needs to be let out, you let it out. Then, if there's words, you can let the words out. And also, then bring words in like, I am love. I am loved. I'm healing. I'm okay. So, coming back around, how do you know if that's really what's going on, right? Like, how do you know if your wound is that deep or not? Usually how you can tell is if you end up getting a little paper cut wound, and by paper cut is like someone just makes a little comment, right? Like a side remark about something that causes an emotional cut, paper cut in your field. If that's all it really is and you're good inside, like a paper cut, it will just heal itself, right? Like you don't really pay attention to it. You don't watch a paper cut heal, it just does it. But now if you do have like how you know that there's probably a deeper wound to deal with is when that becomes more than just that. Like a body that has a lot that's going on cannot heal even a paper cut very easily. It takes a long time. It's going to probably maybe get a little infection. It's going to stay there forever, keep opening up. And that's when you'll know, like, okay, this little thing, which on a normal case could just heal itself up. That's what my body's designed to do. If it's kind of ruminating and it's still lingering on and it's not just healing off, maybe there's a deeper wound I actually need to be taking care of. And then we can do that work from there. There's so many avenues. There's not just one way, but I hope that this analogy and this like few basic steps can be like starting that process for whoever needs it.
No,
It's a
that's
long
that's
answer.
beautiful. I love the way you put it, and I would love to collaborate and create a free PDF on
Mm,
how people can give themselves love, because the way that you started with just the touch and then the breathing, I think that would be a beautiful resource to be able to just share with
yeah,
people, because a lot of people don't know how to love themselves,
true.
as mundane as it is. Yeah, but I didn't even think about just, to me, it's like, okay, affirmations, but no, touch and then
Touch.
breathing.
Hmm.
So it's going through the cycle of life, the steps.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we're definitely we're gonna put that together and offer that
Yes,
as
we
a
will.
resource, because
Love
that's
to.
beautiful.
Hmm.
When you were talking about this, it also brought up, when you talked about how you don't know how deep it is, or sometimes your body's just going through the motions. Fibromyalgia. I know so many
Mm,
people that have had fibromyalgia and were on chronic pain management and medications. And, my wife was one that she um, was on chronic pain management for 12 years with fibromyalgia. And it wasn't until she sat in ceremony that the realization came that it was all stored energy. It was energy because of trauma, because of hurt, because of pain. And it's just the way that the body works, the way that energy works, the way that you have the ability to move trauma points out, release them, and
yeah.
heal yourself. So when you talk about the wound, is it just at the surface level, or is it deeper? And as you're talking, I'm thinking, man, a lot of these deeper wounds, they start with the inner child. They start with trauma from your parents, from bullying, from family. And how many people out there just are taking pills,
Hmm.
or self-medicating, or doing things because they're trying to eliminate or alleviate the pain.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just going back to the source of all this stored energy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Like it's really amazing when when you start to speak in the language of energy, how things can, yeah, the whole world opens up. Um, mm, as you were saying, as you were speaking of that energy, I agree that it does a lot of it. We can source that at or root it down to childhood experiences that we've had. And when we say inner child, what we're saying is essentially the the database of memory that we have
Mm,
through our childhood years. And what I have found in my own journey is that when we have these challenging experiences in our life, which every human has. That's growth, that's life. I'd say the only piece that's caused it to be like trauma or damage or wounding is that we, in the moment, hadn't until now learned the repair process. That yes, it's we're meant to break open in life. We're meant to like that's how we grow. We break open, we crack open and growth happens. But there's this like sealing process that is part of like ceremony. It's like a ceremonial way of living life. But we somewhere along the way that sealing that as like, yes, this is actually the way it's meant to be. Somewhere along the lines we kind of like forgot that. And so now it's just saying like everything in life is actually happening the way it's meant to. If that thing happened that really hurt you, okay, it's okay to hurt. Let's not make it wrong. Let's not now try to put like throw that hurt out on somebody else because the hurt it's wrong to hurt, right? Like that's where I think it just started to get a little out of hand where we didn't seal it, the hurt became too much, we needed to toss it out, it landed on somebody else. Now then it just now here we are. So in that inner child process, in my healing journey, I realized because of those times where I hadn't been modeled or wasn't shown or didn't know how to seal back those growth experiences and affirm that they were loving, need to be all the things. I, in my memory bank of childhood memories, those were the ones that were the most like they were the ones that were still undone. Like they were left open. Like I still needed to close them up. And the experience they in a way took away from me realizing or even having the memory of the good things that happened in my life. Like they overshadowed what I could have been grateful for. And the beauty and why I highly recommend anybody, and if you're watching this you're already on this path, so wonderful, really take on this like radical responsibility of healing self is as once I started doing this to myself as an adult, going back as an adult, parenting my child to seal it in the ways my parents at the time couldn't because they had their own challenges at the time. I did it for my inner child. And in that, all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, all of a sudden, all these other memories came up of like all these good things that happened, and I now can see these good things because that thing that was really hurting and trying to get my attention now has been sealed and it knows its place and its purpose and it's good. It's in harmony with the rest of me. So I would say that those stay open because we haven't yet learned, but it's never too late to go back and affirm to yourself and give yourself that love to seal it and then allow yourself to open up to more experiences than just the negative ones that you've had.
Wow. I'm going to ask you one more question about when we first started the conversation,
Mhm.
and then I'll let you get back to where you were at because there's just so much medicine that we just got stuck in the early childhood and we've just stayed there. But there's just so
Beautiful.
much healing that can happen.
Mm.
You said that your parents exposed you to a lot of travel as a child,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of parents that don't expose their children to travel. And because of that, they grow up not exploring the world, not going out and taking classes in other countries and going on summer abroad programs. How did your parents know to do that? Or was it they were just on the movement? Or did they realize at a young age that they wanted to expose you to the world, to you and your brother? Um,
Mhm.
And then how important is that? Because I've now learned I didn't start traveling till I was in my 40s because I was always busy working. And
Mhm.
then now playing catch up. And I think I'm doing more traveling than working. So, um, and now I'm realizing, I like taking a backpack and just going to these third world countries and just going off with an itinerary. And I
Mhm.
run across these kids from all over the world. And I mean kids, 18, 19. And they're just with a backpack and they go to these hostels and just volunteer and they work for money and they're just traveling the world. And it's
Yep.
like, oh my gosh, talk about fearlessness and just jumping off
Yeah.
like even women, young
Yeah.
girls, just with their backpack and just traveling the world. And I'm like, you know, what a gift.
Mhm.
What a gift that your parents blessed you and your brother, correct?
Brother, yeah, my
Brother,
brother. Mhm.
brother with. Did they know they were doing this, or did it just happen accidentally?
Yeah, good question. That's something that I've been pondering myself as well. Like, how did my parents, of all, like, what are the chances that we born in India, like, how did I get here, right? How did this all happen? I asked myself that. And some of it, I think more conversation will need to be had between my parents to get really clear on that. Part of it was, when we have kids, we just like something happens where like we just something clicks, something goes on where you're just now willing to do things that you weren't willing to do before. And I feel that for my parents at the time, there was just enough exposure to the Western world that they could see a greater possibility. And once my brother and I came into their lives, they started to go, whoa, like we have a sense of responsibility. And all parents have that, but they're like, here is not where we're going to be able to fulfill on it. And so they decided to up and move to Dubai where they could have more independence, create their own life. And there, even more of a melting pot. There's lots of expats that live there. So I feel like there was just enough of that cultural mix. And then my dad had a job that caused him to travel. And my mom, I guess, always had this dream of traveling and wanting to see the world for herself too. And so it just became like part of what we did. Like sometimes it would be connected to where my dad needed to travel for a certain project, and sometimes not. It was just, hey, like we're going to go on this trip. And so we would try to pair it up with a purpose, in terms of like if my dad had a trip, we'd go with him. But sometimes it was just an exploration of some kind. And to answer your question about, like, was that a good thing and all that on the good, I've come to learn that we cannot ever just say only one thing is good and the other is bad. It's like a balance of it all. I'd say people who have not had the experience of traveling have a real rootedness and groundedness and this like unshakableness about them, which I really admire. And when you have had the experience of traveling earlier on, you're just a little bit more open to like be more fluid and a little bit more like able to not be so like, this is the way. But I think there's a healthy balance of both that need can be had in someone's life where when you have values, you can really hold them and stand firm and root down in them, but know that anything outside of those values, you're open to exploring with the world. So a balance is good. I think at the end of the day, life gives us the experience of balance through contrast anyways. So if we're really leaning towards one, some kind of contrasting challenge will show up to like force us into the other side. So a
So
balance is good.
yeah. So now we'll go to where I interrupted you,
Yeah.
and but I wanted to go back because I wanted to touch on some of those points from your early childhood.
Yes.
And then I believe you were starting to say that although they held you to greatness and put you on this pedestal, there were
Yes.
also some challenges as you went into your teenage years or maybe early adulthood, and you were starting to say, but but it wasn't. And I think maybe what you were going to start to say was it wasn't all roses and flowers because now you're being held to
Mm,
these higher expectations. So how does that look for Harsha now that you're destined to be a doctor, you're destined for greatness, and the
yeah.
pressure it puts on you as a young adult,
Yeah, yeah.
and how that correlates with um, parents that are putting so much. I know with my daughters had to get A's.
Mhm,
They weren't allowed to show emotions. They had to read motivational books, and I gave them PTSD in the process. I broke them.
mhm,
I thought I was doing the right thing by projecting my success onto them, even though it came from a place of hurt and pain.
mhm,
In my mind, I have three girls. It's you're never going to depend on a man. You can't cry. So my girls were not allowed to cry.
mhm,
Um, they weren't allowed to show emotion. So I think I'm preparing them, but I'm destroying them. I destroyed them, and so now I'm going to take it on a different context. You're being held to this, higher level of greatness, and I'm
mhm,
sure there's a lot of pressure. There's a
mhm.
lot of struggle. What's happening in Harsha's mind as you're getting older, and now you have the distractions of the teenage years, and baby boys and
Yeah.
friends and all the other stuff that comes up.
Yeah,
What
thank
shows
you.
up?
I'm really glad that you asked me those questions in that part though, because it was the depth that was perfect for us to go into with that. So beautiful, beautiful in that way. And now this part, yeah. This is also where now I'm visualizing me in Canada. So like I've been born and raised in a very different side of the world. And now just as I'm coming into like my adolescent evolution of like, teenage years, I'm also in this brand new country with whole new set of social rules and lifestyle. And also it's a lot colder here than where I'm from. So where where most energetic bodies in their time of their life at that age were going like this, a lot of me was like going like this because it was just physically cold to bear like the temperature here. So I was very like contracted mentally, emotionally, and all of it. And what you shared, your relationship and how you projected onto your daughters, that was my mother's relationship to me. So it was like very that, like, got to do well. There was a lot of love, but it was just really strict rules. And my mom didn't have the capacity to hold any of what my experience was. So it was very much like, got to do this so that things can be good at home. And so that, I can be appreciative of all the hard work that my mom is doing at this time for me. My dad also had that expectation of me to be straight A student, and all of it, but he, like I said, was an emotionally more safe space for me. And so, and he also always had this belief like it's all good. Like, don't, he still to this day prays every day, has a high belief in like everything's all good, don't worry. And so it was more from my mom's side that I had that, and it had an impact on me. Growing up also with my mom being that way, which was very much like I need my daughter to be successful in life, not needing to trust, not needing to lean on a man, and education, and to like make sure you live up to this greatness that we see for you is kind of like that standard. And a lot of the pressure also I put on myself is my brother, they kind of just let off because he didn't demonstrate off the bat. There's so many dynamics because now through the healing, I'm realizing the sibling thing. Like when you're going to bring a second child into your life, you need to have a lot of intentionality with your first child because it's a huge, huge, huge transformation in their life, like an identity crisis that they go through as an older sibling. So that's just another topic. Um, so there was a bit of like all the pressure was on me. Like if I don't get this right, like my parents are going to feel like they failed, and that whole failure is going to rest on my shoulders now. And on top of that, there was like no like education, get successful, just like put your blinders on and don't pay attention to anything else. And if you do, like it's not going to be good for you was the story that I had growing up. And yet I'm in life looking around, going through high school where this is where everybody around me is like starting their experimentation of everything, of their bodies, of their emotions, and I'm here like, no, like even though I still was able to express and like interact with everyone, I still stayed very much in my lane, and the impact that was having on me is a lot of my deep desires and like the true evolution that a human being needs to be able to go through at this time wasn't being allowed its expression. And so a lot of it was going into like a shadow aspect of me and not know, and it kind of became this belief of I can't really have all the things that I truly want to have in this lifetime because everything that I'm meant to do is to appease or do it for somebody else. And I also noticed how, and like shifting from med school to job to career to now calling, how that impacted me. And like when I would work for somebody else, I'd be able to get the job done, no problem. But when it came down to like me choosing my way, I came up against a lot of self limiting beliefs where it was showing me that the idea of greatness and everything that I had up until that point in life thought was like of my own doing, and my desire and my drive was actually for other people, was for my parents. And when that whole thing finally came down, because it was about grade 12, by grade 12, I at that point it was like, I'm done. Like I'm not going to actually be a doctor. I don't know why I'm pretending, but I'm so caught in this stereotypical story box that I've created for myself now. I don't even know how to get out of it. I don't know how to tell my parents, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I don't think that's really what is for me, but I don't even know what else I want to do. I literally at that point was like, who am I really? Because my whole life, everything that I thought about myself wasn't even my own thoughts about myself. It was the projected thoughts from my parents about me and other family members who had said, you are this, you are this, you are this, you are this. And so I took those labels on. And in those labels, what was actually me wasn't allowed any space to be at all. So it felt very suffocating inside of my life experience in my body to be in it. And I disconnected, totally disconnected from myself. I didn't know how disconnected I was. I was pretty much just a head, like, and the body like wasn't part of the picture. To the point where I was under eating, undernourished, like really not taking care of my health at all, and didn't even know that that was the case. So I'm gonna pause there because I'm curious if you have another question to like lead where this is
I
going.
It just brings up so much. It brings up so much emotions because,
Yeah.
I have 3 girls, and, the first one, Alyssa, she's 28 now, you know, all the shit I instilled on her, like, she just followed. Like, I just projected, and she went to college, she got her degree, but then fast forward, she now is holding on to the old narcissistic mild ways.
Right.
So now but that's something I created. Now it's starting to, I have to unravel it,
Mhm.
created a monster, Sorry, Alyssa, it's fucking the truth
Yeah.
hurt, right?
Yeah.
Then my middle one, you start to kind of back off a little bit, but when you talk about how you didn't get to experiment, you didn't get to be you because you was television, I think about my youngest daughter, and I think about how I was so strict with my ways, and then she went into this emo phase, like this goth emo phase, and I was not having that shit. Like I was freaking, we're not gonna do the black lipstick, we're not gonna, and it was a fight, and I was pissed, because it went against what my beliefs. It went against. It just went. It was her self expression, but I didn't allow them to self express.
Mm.
And but then the youngest one, the last child can always wear you down.
Mm.
Like, everything you do with your first child, yeah, it's gonna be totally the opposite.
Yeah.
So, she wore us down, me and her mom, she wore us down, and she went through her emo phase and goth phase, whatever they call it. Um, but she just went there and she self-expressed. And, I'm glad that she wore me down, even though I'd never admitted
Mhm.
to her, so hopefully she's not watching this, because I didn't realize it until actually right now when you started talking. Um, it was her way of self-expressing. It was her way of wanting to break free from the projections that we instilled on her. It's creating this cookie cutter box of what your life is going to be. But she's the one that stepped out of the box and said, no, you're not going to put me into this box. Like, I'm going to dress the way I want. I'm going to be who I want. I'm going to listen to the music that I want. So there was medicine there, but I wasn't ready to receive it.
Mm.
But now, as you're sharing how, in a way, you're being destined to follow that path of being a doctor, it robbed you of the experiences. It robbed you of, maybe it could have just been experimentation with, maybe a joint or alcohol.
Totally. Exactly.
But then because you don't get to explore that as a youth, then you go into adulthood, and then it can become toxic because then now you're going and you're acting out all of those childlike behaviors that
Mhm.
maybe you should have got out of your system or at least
Totally.
dabbled with. So I don't know if that makes sense, or if I'm just
Totally.
babbling on, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to interconnect the two because um, I think about how so many parents who are creating these molded children that are just in the box and can't dress the way they want, can't express their views, and then they leave the house, they go to college or they go onto the world, they move out, and then it's a shit show. Like,
Yeah.
they go out and they just go wild.
Yeah.
I always like to say the Catholic boy or girl that was in Catholic school all their life and
Yeah.
all boys, all girls school, and then they finally get out and they just let loose and they explore
You
with their
don't give it.
body,
Yep.
and they from heaven to hell, and they,
Totally.
you know, um,
Yes. I love that you're sharing this. And yeah, it's similar. Like once finished high school, when I got to university, and it's so funny because I had this conversation with Aaron the other day where we laughed about it. Because most kids would do that experimentation during that high school age. But for me, like it happened during university. And I'm like, while I was paying for school, right? What I got out of that is like I wasted my money where like I was paying for school, but I was skipping class, I was partying and all the things because now finally I'm far enough away that like I didn't live at on campus, but I had at that point enough freedom. I could drive out of the house. Like my parents at that point could like be like, okay, you can do whatever you want to do at this point. Still very controlling to a certain degree in their core nature, but they knew that they had to by law let me do whatever I wanted because I was 18 by then, right?
Only by
Literally, like
law.
it was like that. Yeah. Like by 18 you can do whatever you want, but until then you're gonna like listen to what we're telling you to do was like the rules at home. And so, yeah, university where I was still at that point, still going through the motion of I'm going to be a doctor. So I was doing pre-med courses, but I was not really doing them. I was going to raves, and this is where I started to discover MDMA. And really, when I look at my life, I've been blessed the whole way through. Like the whole thing has been blessings because that experience where, yeah, if you were my parents, you would be like, oh my God, my daughter is like, we lost her. But what I was doing is I was feeling love for the first time in my own body, in my own way. Like I would take this little thing called MDMA, which they use in therapies now. That's why I can say it openly. But yeah, it's also used as a party drug, just like psilocybin. And there'd be music, there'd be lots of people, and I'd be like, wow, what is going on? All these lights. And I'm like, this is an experience. Like, this is amazing. I feel so good in my body right now. Like, wow. I have been denied this my whole life. Like, this is what it's about. And in that time, actually, right then is when I met Aaron in that phase of my life.
Wow.
We crashed into each other in that scene. And in a way, it was like all of my programming to that point basically was like, I don't know my own way. I can't make decisions for myself because my parents have been making all my decisions for me until then. So when Aaron came into my life, he became this new safe space, but I wasn't empowered. And so all of my wounding with my parents and the way I would show up in conflict with my parents is how I would then show up with him too. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So I'm going to come back to this phase where it seemed like I was doing wrong things, but in my experience of going through it, I wasn't actually ever doing anything wrong. I was just there to experience life and to allow life to meet me in my desires of wanting to just be free. Just be free and love, and that's it. And yeah, so I went through that, and I at that point, the beautiful thing, again, blessings, blessings, blessings to this whole story. I think everybody's blessed. I've just had the spirituality has been in my life since the beginning. So I there's like a heightened sort of presence that's been with me always, whether I knew it or not. So at this time, right when I'm like about to go into like the darker parts of this scene, right? Like I had just stepped in university. I'm like going out, doing these things, but it wasn't dangerous. But I think there was like a fine line when I was starting to get closer and closer to face danger in the sense of I kept pushing my edges a little bit more and more. And like now looking back, I knew that because I was just so needing freedom and didn't know how to like access that I was willing to go to the edge of life and even possibly not be here anymore because it was just like, what's the point of all of this anyways, right? Like might as well go over the edge a little. And so right then is when Aaron came into my life. And in a way he like saved me. But not really, because that's where a whole nother level of deep healing came up. So yeah, he saved me, but he also was like the biggest mirror to my wounds at that time. We got into a very toxic thing right off the bat. There was so much love, but there was so much wounding and conditioning that we were working against to be in love with one another. And mainly why that was is the kind of dynamic that my parents had and the kind of dynamic that his parents had were literally polar opposite of one another. So again, before I go there, I just want to pause it because I know we're opening up a lot of things and I'm curious if you have more questions before we go any further.
No, no, I think you segued perfectly because
Okay.
now you meet your partner who becomes your husband, but then now your past now is coming back to haunt you. And
Yes.
and maybe that's not the right word, but it's clashing because
Yes.
now you're now reaching a phase where self-expression and you're feeling the enhancement because of MDMA and the love and so forth and the music and now you guys meet and then I know his story because he was on the podcast and his upbringing very different and well similar but different in different ways. But now you guys come together, so now he's a mirror, but not the right mirror. So no, this is great for you to dabble on because this is now going to set the stage for the relationship, and then as you maneuver through the relationship into becoming mothers and fathers for
Yes.
a child. So no, absolutely.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm speaking to everything now from the healed lens, but I can speak to all of the way it is now because I've done the work to see it as what it was. So what was happening is we were a mirror to one another perfectly. Like we are connected at the soul level. Like our souls know that the love that we have for another is like meant to be, but also our shadows are perfect mirrors to one another too. Where, for example, in my parents' dynamic, there wasn't a lot of harmony between my mother and my father. It was lots of arguing. They really seemed worlds apart. They actually are now separated. After I got married, my dad moved back to Dubai. And so when they did that, it was like that was the way it was always meant to be. I always questioned why are these two individuals even together when they have a hard time getting along. So that was my one of my basic like role modeling of a relationship, intimate relationship. Aaron's parents are inseparable. Inseparable. Like they are connected at the hip. They go everywhere together. And that's it. Now, in both dynamics, the similarities were our cultures don't really support emotional expression. They don't show men how to express their anger and frustration in a healthy way. They don't show women how to open their heart and lean in and invite, all the things. So, in those core ways, we had similar conditioning, but how it looked to us to be in relationship was very opposite. So, I was very much more of like, I'm my own unit, you're your own unit. We need to be like, we need to have distance between us but like we can healthily relate. And for him, that was a bit trick. Like it was not sitting right because for him, he's like, we need to be like this. Like for us to be a partner, like it means we're like that. And it wouldn't compute for him to be any other way. And then we were dealing with way deeper conditioning from lineage for him in masculinity, for me in my femininity, all of it, like the collective stuff that we're all working through, we were also working through. And then we had our specific lineage challenges that were here to essentially show us that the love is here for us and we are meant to be together. And in us choosing this relationship and this partnership, what we're also choosing is to come face to face with some of the deepest wounds that we have inside of us that we don't know that they exist here. And some of them aren't even wounds, it's just we've been conditioned one way and in order to be whole, complete human beings, we need to be open to being multidimensional. We need to be open to life in more than just this is the way it is. And so our partner will come in and he was that for me, that exactly the ways where I was rigid and unmoving in my ways, he was there to like poke at that by being a completely opposite way. And for him, I was that for him. And I like to say in each 1 year of our relationship, we were like amplifying, like going through 3 years of our relationship. Another gift is when we got together, we tapped into personal development. That's when going to seminars and everything, all of this became a reality for us. We did it together. So our relationship, as challenging as it was to begin with, had it not been for us being in relationship, we wouldn't have together stepped into these environments that were then giving us exactly the tools we needed to work through the exact challenges that were coming up for us. And we needed that to be able to continue moving through all the challenges that were coming up. And for us, we see like we really are meant to be leaders in this space. So the challenges that came to us seem like they were more amplified or more than what maybe a typical couple would be facing at the time. And now we know it's because, right, we signed up for something greater than what a typical couple would be signing up for. We signed up for like something major, like a huge vision that's bigger than him and me, and that was what brought us together. What we didn't see at the time is in order to bring that to fruition, like we would have to go through some stuff. So that's been our journey.
That's beautiful. And I'm going to stop you there because I want to go circle back to one question and then I want to pick up on that because
Okay.
that's powerful right there, especially for couples that are maybe mirroring themselves, but they're bringing out the ugliness, so to speak. Sometimes it's dabbling into that world of personal development, self growth, so you can both go on this journey of healing together.
Yes.
But something you said that struck a chord was you said you always knew that your mother and father probably should have been together,
Hmm.
and you knew it was destined to happen. What would be your message for mothers and fathers that are staying together? Because there's a lot of them out there that stay together because they think it's the right thing to do for the kids. Even though there's chaos, and then I'm not saying this is your household, but there's physical abuse, there's yelling, screaming, there's infidelity. The kids are seeing it. The kids are seeing everything that's going on.
Yeah.
You think you're hiding things, but you're not.
Right.
And then eventually it happens. And then the kids say, well, man, you could have done this a lot sooner. Like you fucked this up. You really messed this up, you know?
Right.
Um, what's your message? Now, now you've been in a different space and you've seen what is your message to mothers and fathers that are using the excuse that they're staying for the kids?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. My parents were in an arranged marriage, so that's where I come in. It was
Ah,
like a cultural in the culture. It's really like divorce is just like not an option even. So I wonder if some of it is just like that deep cultural, like once you choose, you can't. It's a fine line to answer this question, Edward. Um, because it's so nuanced, right? Like I wish I had just like one, like this is the answer. I think it comes down to each household would need to like would have their own specific answer for them. But generally speaking, um, it's that awareness of like, is this really how we're choosing? Like, if any third party was to walk into that door, they could identify the energy in that space. And even without judgment, even if it was like a very enlightened person that walked into that room and they weren't judging it, they could say, like, oh, there's a certain texture to this space right now. And I feel that we just have lost our self awareness, kind of circling back to what I was sharing before. When we just bring awareness back to ourselves, that's the first step for everything because we don't have to make the big decisions right away. We just need to have awareness of ourselves first. And when we can clarify awareness of what's going on, the decision makes itself in a way. Like everyone collectively just knows, oh, this is what needs to happen. Like we need to put go all in and work through our things and clear out this negativity because we know we have love. And why we're actually arguing and why there's all this chaos is because there's so much love in this house, but we don't haven't learned how to love each other, right? And so it just bounces off the freaking walls and then it turns into a chaotic thing and then we don't like what we're experiencing as love. So I think it comes down to the parents owning their relationship and comes down to what advice I would give to parents across the board is it's not about the kids, right? Like you
Mm,
that it's about the mother and the father and their relationship above all else. I think when as parents we forget that the relationship that we have with one another is the most important relationship, even more important than the relationship that we have with our children. That's when we can start to make those decisions and come from a place of like, we need to do this for us. Because at the end of the day, like you said, the kids are picking up on that more than anything. And that the consequences of staying together and the consequences of breaking apart are still there. No matter which way you choose, there's going to be pros and cons to each decision. But what it comes down to is parents realizing like, who are we on the same team? Are we together on one team creating this? Or do we feel like we are on two separate teams trying to compete against each other to create an outcome that then our kids will fall in line with whoever's won that battle? There's a different energy that we come with. It's so nuanced because where it all comes from and the root cause of it, and even what's caused you to choose that partner, there's a whole journey that you get to and you have to go through to uncover things and to realize what that answer is for you. Because it can be for a child for example, right? I'm creating this in my mind right now. A child can be in a home where their parents are arguing a lot, it's chaotic and all the things. And then their parents could make a decision, right? They're like, "Hey, we need to make a decision here." And they make a decision that says, "This can no longer be this way. Like what we're creating in our home can no longer be because it's negatively impacting everyone except especially the child." So the decision could be like, "Hey, we're deciding that in order to have this no longer happen, we need to really do our healing work and come together and work our stuff out and create a really harmonious environment in our home together." And we know that like we are willing to do this. And that might be the decision that gets made. And in that moment, the child energetically receives like, "Oh, like this is what I'm getting. Yeah, we don't know what's going, but my parents are here to find a solution." And that leaves an impact that's slightly more positive than whatever was happening before. On the other hand, you may have same situation and the parents go, "Look, we really can't be creating this environment in our home anymore. And in order for us to not do that, we really need to have a clean break and we need to then create our own lives. And we need to show our child that the love can still exist and that they still have both of us and that it's more peaceful this way. And that there's just a different set of healing and a different way of approaching healing that each partner has to do in order to still have that in within the environment of the family, which is the three unit together." I don't have like I'm speaking as if I'm just speaking through what would feel right for me. I think it's very nuanced to every family, every person, um, and that there's no right or wrong answer, and that you can change your decision, right? Like we can make the decision today. We're gonna try to work it out and go all in, and then like 5 years down the line, we come up against again. We have to make a decision now. And in this decision, what are we going to choose? Are we going all in again to clear this space? Okay, let's do that. Or are we now choosing to go? I think intentionally coming in and ceremoniously approaching your problems and solutions in a way like this, it just lets you not have to be so like, um, what I'm trying to say, like right and wrong, like this is the right way and this is the wrong way, kind of thing.
I love that. And just to respect your time, do you have another 10 or 15 minutes?
I do, yeah,
Okay, because
yeah.
yeah, it's just so you know, you and Aaron now I'm gonna fast forward. You guys are going through self-development, you guys are going to seminars, you guys are going to
Yep.
start to feed your souls as far as mindset, leadership, and
Mhm.
so forth. How I know you said it started to help you guys along the way because there was some toxicity because of his upbringing, your upbringing. Tell us more about as you guys started to develop and then how it led you to plant medicine because I'm going to share something with you.
Yeah,
Not a lot of couples can pull it off.
yeah.
But when I think of you two, there's perfect synergy there.
Yeah.
There's a perfect balance. And not it's almost like the yin and the yang. It's not rubber stamping, but it's you both bring these different, I'm going to say skill sets, but that's not giving it the right justice. You both
Mm,
bring different worldly views of life.
yeah.
And when you come together, it makes magic. And then being able to just reciprocate that when people are sitting in ceremony, because I experienced it, but I experienced it before when I used to work security at the Waking events, and I would come and I would have you see, and you'd come over and you were assisting with breath work and so forth, and just the gentleness,
Mm.
the way that you in tuned with the energy and the vibration and so forth. I'm like, and I didn't really know you at the time. Like, man, who is this? You know, this is pretty cool. Like, I would just kind of observe. I was doing security for Awaken and for Dan
Right.
Insight,
That's right.
and just an observation. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then as I started to get you guys to know you and stuff, and it's like, okay, but you guys are able to pull it off. I know other couples that are in this work, and they're not. So it's not everybody that can pull it off to the level that I think you guys are going to gravitate to, because I know
Mm,
you're going on this whole new journey
yes.
of now starting to do the work and starting to share your gifts with other people, and especially going into a new country and so forth.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that journey for you guys. But
Yes.
yeah, if you can just kind of pick up where you let off and how that took you guys to where you're at today.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. When we got engaged, after we got engaged, Aaron and me, it's so interesting, right? Like a, a lot of we were going through the motions of like timeline wise, but there was just so much that we were still uncovering and healing through the whole journey. So we had a even with all the work, we had like a big breakdown, a big relational breakdown that sort of was like the final, like we had to pull the plug in that moment where I had to reassess everything. Are we still going to get married? Is this still going to happen? I was like pulling the plug at that point. And in that, we had a separation for a couple of weeks. And that couple of weeks separation, I actually went to India. He was supposed to come with me on that trip. So there was just so much more like erupted in that separation. And I came during that time, I was like really getting complete with this could be the end of our relationship. This could be the end of Aaron and me. And at the same time, I was reading a book at that time that was really helping me come back home to the roots of my spiritual connection that, as I mentioned before in the conversation, I had always my whole life. The book was The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And as this time when it was like for me, it was to see that all of the facade of life that had been shaping me, the illusions, finally came to that point of like, this can no longer be. And I think getting engaged, there's something about the energy of like that ring with couples that like sets something in motion where it became real and we needed to have that breaking point right then to get real with me seeing that a lot of my wounding is still active. I need to take my healing a lot more seriously. I need to take accountability and I need to recreate a life that really is in alignment with me because I can't live in this way of being in this sort of more toxic than healthy relationship. And interestingly, in that break, Aaron had his own transformation. And when I came back home after that to those 2 weeks, when I saw him, it was like all of these thoughts that I was having up until this point of us separating in that moment, like it's like I was right here and it was just like, no, this is my person. We are meant to be together. I forgive you and I forgive me and we are going to do this again and it's going to be okay. Like these words just came out of me. I didn't even know what I was saying. And that's when my spiritual connection really started to awaken for me in my life. I believe it's because I was willing to forgive and love despite hurt and pain and willing to give myself another chance and take responsibility for the hurt that was caused to me and say that I wasn't a victim to this. It's the way that I had been showing up in our relationship up until this point that has all come to face me now for me to see that I haven't been living in alignment with how I want to be. And I now choosing that from this moment forward, I am going to be that. And if that means that in that Aaron still gets to is still my partner, I'm open to it. But I also have a whole new outlet of myself and what I want in my partnership. And this is where I'm going now in my life. And Aaron was like, yeah, we're doing it together. And we met each other with the ongoing challenges from there. And our healing went a level deeper. Spiritual technology came into my life that allowed me to amplify my energy and develop a direct conscious connection to my spirit guides. So for me, from that point forward, I no longer needed confirmation from any human being of anything spiritual in nature. Like everything spiritual, I was getting direct confirmation from source itself, and life was showing me. And that started to give me the empowerment that I deserved to have my whole life. Like that was always there, but I hadn't had that like amplification. And so that happened. And then I became a breathwork facilitator. So breathwork became a modality that came into my life. And so like the healing went from me stepping into spaces to receive the seminars to now I'm taking on healing to the level of I'm going to be facilitating healing for others. But I didn't know I was doing that. I wasn't doing that consciously. It was just the life. I was doing it consciously, but also there was unconsciousness in it. And then breathwork allowed me to go into an even more like the depth of healing that's possible in humans. I can't even, I don't even know how to share it. There's so much of it. It was all perfect. Went into plant medicine afterwards. But the interesting thing is, before plant medicine fully came into my life, that was also actually when we attended our first Awaken virtually, 2021. So by this point, we've had the huge transition shift. Spiritual guidance is in my life. My health and everything is online now. I'm like clear. And then we have an experience at Awaken on virtually, and we see Danny speaking, and we'd known of him before. And that's when Aaron and I said, "We're ready for plant medicine. Like, we're ready to sit with Mother Aya." And I became pregnant 3 weeks after we made that declaration. So I
Wow.
wasn't able to sit with Mother Aya at that time. He went, and motherhood became my next medicine ceremony. Those 9 months, I got even more tapped in. My womb awakened. So from that point, so all that you're sharing that you're, witness of me at Awaken is the culmination of this phase of our journey where we had the big breaking point that would have ended it. But we chose through that. We made another choice, like I shared with you, like, no, this, we're going to still go all in. We're going to forgive and we're going to try. And it's still a learning, but the depth of like what you've shared that you see in us and our synergy and our mission and everything is more online now than ever. And even more full circle, bringing this all home now. We are moving to Dubai from here. So it's like I said, the healing never really ends. Because for me, even after all of what I've gone through and the healing I've accessed, now my inner child healing is going to a whole nother level. My son is the same age that I was when my parents moved to Dubai. So I get to
Wow.
go through a whole nother depth of it. Um, and so now what we're creating is uh, Aaron realizing that what he was doing before was not for him. Real estate, he really had a passion for something more. And in this, we've come to see like our whole journey together since we've been together, the 10 years, that's been our healing. So I know we're going off on time here a little bit. Sorry. Um, and and so now we've basically sat and decided like we've seen what we've become as a result of what we've done. What has that path been? What really impacted us? What took us here? And we've picked all of those highlight components and we've put it together to offer it into a community that we are now building online where we can offer to our community essentially all the things that has been offered to us in our journey and also the insights and revelations that we have ourselves had as a result of our experience in it all. and then offer a space where people can enjoy, connect, heal, and come home to themselves through being part of a community online that Aaron and I are leading. So that's
You
what
know,
we're
it's almost like a rags to riches story
doing.
for a couple that went through the ring, went through the ropes, and almost made it to the end where they weren't going to make it, and then it just it just evolved. It just
Yeah.
you guys had that separation. Sometimes they say, if you truly want to see if something works, if they truly love you, you have to let them go, and then if you come
Mhm.
back, then it's meant to be. So it sounds like that was a little bit of your story. You left India, he was there, you had this unraveling, he had this unraveling. You came back and made a conscientious decision. No, we're going to make this work. That's beautiful. No,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. We're gonna have to do a part two. Okay, we're definitely gonna have to do a part two because there's so much more that I want to cover.
Mhm.
But I know we've
Yeah.
run out of time. So, wow, this was powerful. I was I knew it was gonna be good, but we really touched on. There's some medicine here um,
Thank you. Yeah.
in this episode. This is beautiful. And what would be your? I don't even want this to end. I just have to jump on another podcast. I could keep it going another 20, 30 minutes because we haven't even dabbled into
Let's do
your
it
experiences with Aya and motherhood. And so, yeah, there's going
for
to be a
sure.
part two.
For sure.
Um, as we bring it close, not by choice, through this episode, what would be your parting words to someone that's watching this episode and says, I can relate to Harsha.
Mm,
That's my story.
yeah.
What would be your closing words?
I would say, of course you can, because I am you and you are me. And that's what makes us human is we have this connection. Um, what I would say is, we always hear we are all one. We are all one, right? Like that. What does that mean? And I want to impart that there's never just one meaning to it. And how I see we are one is in actually two ways. One, we are one as in like, yes, collectively, we're all the same. Like we're one collective human body together. We have the same parts inside of us. Like we can relate in that sense. But also we are one in that like I am one and whole and complete in myself. Like I am my whole one, and then I'm part of the oneness that exists for all of us. And so, in what I can share is really focus on the oneness of both angles, like bringing balance to understanding we're all connected, but then knowing that you have your own purpose, you have your own experience, you have your own knowing, your own everything that's so unique to you, that yes, although you can relate and connect with everyone on this planet on anything, knowing who you are as this is what's going to help you be able to do that at that level. And if I can just say, hone in on yourself at that level of oneness, body, mind, heart, soul, everything, you're already on the right path. If I can just share like my stories than anything is I'm still just I don't have all the answers, but I have all the answers that I need, and I hope that that lands for you. And also I just want to share, Edward, I'm so grateful for what you are creating and who you are being. And my goodness, just who you are and your heart's mission, however I can support you and how I can further amplify what you're doing, let me know because I'm truly grateful. You are medicine for so many, including myself. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You can support it by having an extra room. So when I go to Dubai, I can visit. So,
Yes,
no,
for
I-
sure.
um, my party message, this has been such a beautiful conversation, is something that happened in Journey 19 for me when I was sitting with Aya and my soul was above my body as I was kicking like a fish and I was going through a very hard ceremony. And I remember grandmother looking at me and one kind of giggling because I traveled all over the world to go sit with the medicine. And my way of healing was putting myself through this torture and pain,
Mm,
crying and purging. And she said this, and I want to share with the audience because I feel it's fitting for
mhm.
this conversation. She said, "You're doing so much work. Pick and choose what you want to heal in this lifetime."
Mm,
And with that, that freed me.
mm,
That freed me to know that I wasn't going to solve everything in this lifetime, but there'll be many more lifetimes to work on. So pick the things that are important for me at this point in time
yes.
and just move forward. And just, it resonates with a lot of what you just shared. So I just felt called to say that.
Yes.
And with that, thank you for joining us. Another episode of Fatherhood Voices, where we are not only bringing men on, but women to start the process of breaking the toxic cycle.